You are running with the Devils, and we are back and back talking Arizona State football with you here. Thank you so much for tuning in on YouTube. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, comment below. We love hearing from you. And it's a victory show, Big John.
Woo!
We're talking a Sun Devil victory. The losing streak is over. The Devils with a big win in Tempe last Saturday night, 38-27 over the Washington State Cougars. I'm the RyKno, Ryan Knowles. Here with me as always, Big John Caldwell.
Yo.
Big John, it feels good to be talking about an ASU win. Those weeks, those 6 weeks talking nothing but losses was wearing a little bit thin on me, especially, not to count the bye week.
Yeah.
Now we get to talk about a win, and that feels really good, especially with the way that the team performed. That was probably the most complete performance we've seen from them all season long.
Yeah, kudos to the staff and for the kids for not quitting. The staff really made some great adjustments, I felt, in terms of, especially on the offense. Defense has been playing well all year.
And that's been a weak point for them this year. The coaching staff adjustments, especially at halftime, seemed like the team was getting outplayed in the second half in some of those losses, but they definitely came out and performed on Saturday. That was such a great show to watch, and love seeing the team play like that. It was like the team of old, like some of the teams of old. It's felt like.
Yeah. Well, playing at home especially is where you want to see them, get.
Yes.
And as I kept saying, they couldn't get any closer without winning, and they finally figured a way to break through. But they made some.
And this has not been a second half team all season long for the most part. This team has played well, and they've had a lot of halftime leads, haven't been able to maintain it in the second half. They did on Saturday. They dominated the second half, outscoring. They took a 24-21 lead into the locker room. They grew that lead, come out on top 38-27. We're definitely calling this the offense's most complete game this season. They were extremely balanced in this one, and gaining over 500 yards of total offense. And that was so great to see. That was was really great showing by the offense.
I thought everything we nailed in our keys to victory were right on, man, as far as what they accomplished in this game. But
what they needed to do, certainly. And we'll get into what the offense needs to do in order to keep this momentum going. Use this as a building block going forward. And we mentioned the balanced offensive attack. As you can see the numbers there: 274 yards passing, that 235 yards rushing was extremely impressive. That was probably the biggest key to the Devils' victory right there. And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some more about that, and we'll preview the Devils' matchup with the Utah Utes in Salt Lake City this weekend. But we've got to focus on the win over the weekend. The Devils, struggle in the first half. It seemed like Washington State was moving the ball at will at times, and ASU had trouble adjusting to when the Cougars started running tempo. But we mentioned the halftime adjustments were right on point in this game, and especially the defense. They allowed just 6 points in the second half, keeping the Cougars out of the end zone to help seal the win.
Well, I was impressed with the offensive adjustments and the fact that it was a tighter set, right, between O linemen, and then you brought wide receivers and tight ends as extra blockers. That was really, really smart, because if you watch them in pass, they would drop that little the shell they were building around Trenton was very, very nice. And then the second thing they did is you got your playmakers like Badger in motion to run those. And they know that when he's got a running start, he's and you get the ball in his hands, you either toss it to him or you throw out to him.
Get him out in space. Yeah,
he's very effective.
He scored on one of those plays, and that was really nice to see him get the ball in his hands in different ways. So
and then what they did with Conyers with the tight end, letting him running the long the streak route pretty much.
Yeah, and finding him up the seam,
right,
as well.
And then I called a play in the both when we were at the game, and I said also in the last week, I said, get Gio Sanders into that zone, into that seam. Sure enough, they found him beautifully. So what they're doing, they're putting the playmakers in the best position to do well. And that's that, and they've adjusted their game for that. And I just my hats off to the coaching staff for making those adjustments. The way the splits, the way the wide receivers were handling the splits on the DBs, going inside, coming outside.
And to full disclosure, Washington State, not the best defensive team. They kind of struggled in this one. I mentioned this during the pre-show. I didn't kind of put together how undersized Washington State is, especially for a Pac-12.
Their D line was small. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, they were small kind of across the board. I mean, he said that their strength was in their pass rush and their secondary. Well, they didn't really touch Trenton most of the game.
Nope.
They didn't have a sack in this game, and the ASU definitely took advantage and carved up that secondary, as you can see here. And that was really great to see, because the offense, we weren't sure how they were going to respond in this game. After their struggles that they had up in Seattle, just wanted to see them go out and really put together a complete performance, and they definitely did that over the weekend.
Yeah, I agree.
And especially in the running game. I mean, I think it kind of went under the radar, but having DeCarlos Brooks back, I think, has been a big boost to this offense, because he's such a nice complementary piece to Cam, to Scatterbo, and because DeCarlos, he's more of a downhill, one cut and go type of guy. He'll get ahead of steam and just start running over people, and he hits the hole really well. Does a lot of things very well. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. He's a little bit different, whereas Cam's a more patient runner, more of a change of pace guy. Yeah, he's certainly somebody that you want to get the ball in his hands as well, but they complement each other very, very well.
What's nice about it, because you have two running backs, you can run all four quarters and wear out that D line and wear out those linebackers.
And somebody's going to be fresh. Somebody's always going to be fresh.
That's right.
That's a big weapon to have. So seeing those guys get out there and play well was huge. Seeing some other young guys get out and play some big snaps. We hadn't seen much of the freshman receiver Caleb Black. He had a nice play on an end around for a first down. They also looked for him in the red zone on a play. Alfonso Taylor, the safety, played some big snaps. He's been mostly a special teams player in his time here. And then another true freshman, Elijah O'Neal, the defensive end, played some big snaps as well, because they had some guys banged up on the defensive line. Eventually, they did come back in, but he still played some big snaps as a reserve, and it was good to see him get out there and play real well.
Yeah, the OC, Bo Baldwin, if you ever have a chance to talk to him, guys, he'll tell you. If you ask him who's the one player who's gonna be a breakthrough or surprise people out there, he goes, he surprises me every day. Caleb Black is showing out every day.
Yep, and he's definitely played really well. He played really well Saturday in the chances that he was given. So definitely like to see him maybe be a little bit more, have a bigger role in the offense, because he's certainly got the speed to make plays out there. So definitely looking forward to seeing him get more involved. And then we mentioned ASU win number 2 on the season, their first conference win of the year, and their first one since Washington, almost a full calendar year ago. Yeah, it's good to get that monkey off their backs. Hopefully that'll lead to maybe a couple more wins this year.
And the quality of the team they beat is really nice too, for kind of the way what's the schedule.
Washington State, they've been scuffling a little bit. They had 3 straight losses coming into this season, but at one point, they were ranked number 13 in the nation.
Right.
They had won their first 4 games. They were looking really good. They've had some struggles of late, but this is still a solid team, especially offensively. They're a team that can put a lot of points on the board, and ASU kept them from even hitting 30, and they really shut them down in the second half, which was great. Great to see. They still got their yards, but the ASU kept them out of the end zone. That was a huge victory for the defense, I felt like.
Well, I'm so happy this week is players of the game instead of what did we learn.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And in 6 straight shows, it's been what we learned. But as we do after a victory here on RWD, we're talking players of the game. Got to give out some of our proverbial helmet stickers to talk about, and that's presented by the Valley Athletic Booster Club. Support local athletics. Check out valleyathleticboosterclub.com. And for me, I mentioned him earlier, and I think he's, every time I hold my breath every time he gets the ball, because he looks like he's about to make a big play, and he certainly did on Saturday. 11 Carlos Brooks, 11 carries, 67 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, this guy was especially I think ASU definitely missed him in the red zone because he's a guy, he puts his shoulder down, he can get those tough yards, and he falls forward, which is a big weapon to have in the red zone, to get to find that goal line, and he certainly did on Saturday. That one where he got pummeled in the air. He dove for the end zone, and I'm glad he got up from that because that did not look very good when it happened. But he's a tough kid, so definitely shook it off, and he had a very, very nice game. And 5 rushing touchdowns for ASU in this one. Cam had one. Mentioned Elijah Badger had one. So kudos to the ground game and that offensive line, especially. This is a reflection of them as well with what the rushing attack was able to do.
And by the way,
and then on defense,
go ahead.
On defense, one guy who just flashed to me every time he was out there. It seemed like he was always around the ball, always making plays, and that's Prince Dorba.
Yeah, key plays.
Making a lot of plays. Didn't get a sack in this one, but 2 tackles for loss, a big pass deflection when he went out in the flat and actually covered the running back on a play and knocked the ball down. And he just seemed like he was everywhere. He was always in on a play. And to me, he's my defensive player of the game. He definitely flashed and was always in on plays. And it seems like each and every week he's a guy who's getting better and getting more comfortable with this offense. And I'm so excited to see what else he's got in store.
And the other D tackler, Malloy.
Clayton Smith, yes, defensive end.
Clayton Smith had a heck of a game.
But he was all over the place too. He had a couple sacks. He plays offense. That play where they drew the pass interference, that was him. They tried to throw the ball to him. That was a nice use of a defensive player on offense. I like to see those little wrinkles sometimes. And he was a force in the pass rush. Definitely a nice game from him as well.
I love how we're putting all kinds of bodies out there in new spots, using feet, a defensive tackle on special teams as a tight end. I mean, we're just getting creative, right?
Yeah.
But and I'm just gonna say there was an offensive player, and O linemen don't get players of the week, but typically, Joey Ramos was kicking butt out there, especially on those end arounds. He was pulling and getting out to the second level and just destroying people. Kudos to Joey.
I mean, he had his season last year ended prematurely by an injury, and it seemed like he wasn't always 100% healthy. They've been moving him around different spots on the O-line this year because of injuries, but I think he's kind of found a home over there at right tackle. And they were running a lot of plays behind him to that side, especially on pitches out to Carlos Brooks. Joey Ramos was usually the one, plowing the road in front of Carlos for some nice runs. So that was really great to see. So Joey Ramos, I've mentioned this before, one of my favorite players on this team. Went to high school right around the corner from me here in Glendale at Deer Valley. Definitely followed his career, and I was so excited when he transferred from Iowa State here, and I've definitely rooted for him ever since he set foot on campus. So definitely excited to see him kind of come into his own this year as one of the leaders on that offensive line.
Yep.
And your players of the game, Big John?
Me and special teams, I had to make 3. So I thought Trenton had a heck of a game. And
Dario was kind of going through a bit of a lull and a slump. And we mentioned it on the show last week. He was like 1 of 4 or 1 of 5 at one point. Missed his first field goal in this game, but hit a big 50-yarder right before the half to give ASU the point lead. So kudos to him. He definitely bounced back and didn't let that get to him.
And he had a long time to think about it with all the review and Conyers going down and trying to figure out how much time was on the clock.
That was a big play right before the end of the half because
it's huge.
Conyers gets down. He we weren't sure if their injury was for real or not at the time, but luckily it wasn't. but then that buys enough time for ASU to get their kicking team on the field because they were out of timeouts.
Right.
And
they
while the review was on, they get the kicking team out on the field. There's 3 seconds left. Ref starts ready for play, and ASU immediately snaps it, and Dario kicks a 50-yard field goal to walk off into the locker room up 24-21, and that was a big momentum boost going into the second half because ASU gets the ball to start the second half. They drive down and score, and
that's
essentially take control of the game the rest of the way.
That's one of the big things in college and any football is if you can score right before half, especially if you're getting the ball next. That's like the big momentum swing.
It's like the equivalent of a stop and score, and it is a huge momentum swing, and certainly something that was I think a key sequence to ASU pulling out the win.
This was the number this is what stood out for me. He's in his last 6 starts before this, Trenton was averaging 331 yards per game in the air. This was a little more balanced game, but his completion percentage was
as good as the running game was.
Right.
I didn't expect a big game from Trenton Bourguet here because Washington State's secondary is certainly above average.
But he kept the chains moving.
Making good decisions with the ball has always been a hallmark of Trenton Bourguet's success, and not turning the ball over, doing a good job moving the team down the field, and he made some big throws on some 3rd and longs to Winston, to Geo Sanders. Those guys only had 1 catch each, but the ones they made were really big to move the chains and keep those drives going.
Yep.
Yeah, and so the way they were able to kind of extend plays on 3rd down, and they were 7 of 10, I think, on 3rd down for the game. Which
I remember that was about half of those we were behind the chains pretty good too, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So and this number, 3rd and long,
that can break a defense's spirit in a big way. So
this number is the 10.5 yards per attempt really stood out to me too. And then on defense, Chris Edmonds had 8 tackles and a pass deflect. I think he played a great game. We have already talked about Dario, but it's nice to see Trenton. He wasn't. We all thought, is he going to be okay? The ankle all right? Because he's a little. But no hint of that. No hint of any kind of letdown after a tough.
Yeah, and they got him out. They got him out and ran and let him run a little bit when it was necessary. They tried that little sneak play that they run around the goal line as well. I mean, 6 carries for 18 yards for a pocket passer, I'll take that, especially when he runs for like a 10-yard gain to get a first down. So I mean, just stuff like that. Anything you get out of Trenton Bourguet with his legs is a bonus as far as I'm concerned.
Gravy is gravy.
So, but before we get into the Utah preview, got to do our, we like to have a talking point every week to kind of transition from last week's game into this week's game. And the one thing for me, given what we know about the offense, what we saw from the offense, I should say, against Washington State, can this be a turning point for the offense? Can they continue to play at this high level, continue to put points up on the board? Those 38 points were a season high for them. They hadn't even cracked the 30-point mark.
That's right.
In any game this season. So can they continue this level of play, Big John, and continue to be a force and hopefully be a more balanced squad?
I think the adjustments, these weren't just adjustments for Wazzou. They made the fundamental changes to how they were lining up on the line with tighter sets, letting wide receivers and tight ends be extra blockers. Those are all things that we needed to do when based on the personnel we had out there, the way we're putting people into the best position to excel. I mean, we know that Elijah Badger's fast, right? Get him a running start, right? Get him a running start.
Same for Caleb Black. Yeah.
Caleb Black. Yeah. So I think
let your offensive linemen pull, let them get outside and create running lanes and things, just things like that. I think just little things, little changes to their philosophy and their play calling and how they line up guys and whatnot. I think that can sometimes that really can make all the difference. And
I'll give you the one pass over the middle to Swinson. You and I were sitting there, and I said, "Watch how he's beating his
You
man
called it.
badly.
Yeah,
I
you
called the
called
play
it.
because he was beating his man so badly that he literally he turned to him to the outside and boom, he went right across diagonally and made a great and Trenton put the ball fairly on him. It wasn't
Yeah,
behind him.
but
It was a
it
good
was a
pass.
good catch because it was contested. He did, the
Yeah.
defender did get close enough to make a play on the ball.
Mhm.
Saya, very solid catch. We know he's got good hands. He's been a big red zone target since he set foot on
And
campus.
he can block.
Yeah, he can. Oh yeah, he can. That's why they've been using him more. Him, Brian Morgan.
Bryce
They've been
Pierre.
using he's up Bryce Pierre. They've been using the tight end extremely well, rotating these guys in. It hasn't just been Jalen Conyers. He's the guy who kind of gets a lot of the fanfare because he scores touchdowns. But there's, this is a great, this is a nice tight end room. I think they, from top to bottom, they have collectively one of the best tight end groups in the nation,
Well,
and
I like
starting to use it a little bit more.
yeah, I love Conyers deeper because so it's one thing to take on a linebacker right across the middle, to take on a little DB, a big mismatch, and you see how he just jujitsu'd that guy into the ground,
And
right?
that's the thing with tight end. With the best tight ends,
Yeah,
they're too fast for linebackers. They're too big for DBs.
right,
They're essentially just mismatch nightmares.
right.
And to me, that is Jalen Conyers. And when he is given the right opportunities, he's put in the right positions to be successful. He can have one of those games like he did against Colorado and
Yeah,
Washington State
right.
last year. Where he's scoring multiple touchdowns. He's going over 100 yards. He's making big plays after the catch. And he didn't, he only had what, 3 catches, I think, in this
Yeah,
game.
yeah,
So 4 catches, I beg your pardon. But he
yeah.
went for 90 yards. He had that big 50-yard catch. He had that one where he kind of stumbled, but still managed to, to keep going upfield. So
Well, he took
yeah,
that
this is
guy out. Took that guy out too. He took
yeah.
that little DB. He
And
just kind of threw
honestly,
him to the ground.
yeah, and honestly, he's had some injury issues himself this year, but to me, this was his best game of this season
Yeah,
as
I
well.
think so. I think the people, the playmakers, we all know who they are now, but there's another level of playmakers coming up. We'll keep getting the ball too, but can they continue this as long as their attitude is right? I think,
Yeah,
and they're hungry. I
and
can tell you that they're hungry.
and they continue. I think if they continue to make adjustments with with the teams that they're playing and with the oppositions they're playing, there's no reason to think that they can't have success. Even with Trenton Bourguet, at quarterback, could we see Jaden Rashada again this year? He's got 2 games left without burning his red shirt, so could we see him again? We don't know just yet. But I like the way Trenton Bourguet ran that offense on Saturday. Moved the team up and down the field extremely well. They were able to find the end zone 5 times. Usually you're doing something right when that happens. So
Yeah, he's getting the ball out nice and quick.
That and they're going to be having. This is a nasty, big, physical Utah defense that they're going to see on Saturday.
It's going to look a lot
Washington
different.
State. These are some big boys who have NFL size, and they're going to come to play because they got embarrassed by Oregon last week. So this is going to be a huge test for this offense. I think that they're up to it. I think they have the playmakers capable of it to put some points up on Utah and certainly put themselves in a position to win. But it's going to be a big test. You believe that? And that's kind of been the hallmark of the Utah Utes through, Kyle Whittingham. He's built, just, I wouldn't call it a winning machine, but certainly one that just continues to be successful, play in big games, win big games more than anything. They won 2 straight Pac-12 titles now, and go to big time bowl games and just continue to churn out, great players year in and year out. And it's been a little bit of a different season for Utah this year because they had some injuries right off the bat. Their quarterback Cam Rising, who was so talented, and has been a leader of this team and led them to those 2 straight Pac-12 titles. He was hurt before the season even started. He got hurt in spring ball, and they just announced a couple weeks ago he's not going to play at all the rest of this season. And then Brant Kuithe, their super talented tight end, who was paired so well with Dalton Kincaid, who's playing for the Buffalo Bills right now, he hasn't played most of it at all this year. He got hurt as well. So they're dealing with some serious injury problems. but they've still found ways to win. They still found ways to be successful and generate offense. And of course, their defense is always very, very tough, very physical, and they control the line of scrimmage as well as just about anybody. And just kind of going into kind of a bird's eye view of the Utes. If we go to the next slide.
Yeah. I thought Kenny, by the way, Kenny paid ultimate homage to Coach Whittingham by calling him, that he set the standard for how to build a program.
Definitely. Yeah. And he's been there since this team was in the Mountain West. This is his 19th season as head coach in Salt Lake City. He was an assistant for 11 years before that. I mean, he was assistant under Kyle Whittingham, or excuse me, under Urban Meyer, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Before Urban went to Florida. And this has kind of been a down year for them. They started out really strong, as you would kind of expect, even though they were playing backup quarterbacks for most of the year. They pull off a couple big wins at Baylor. Certainly no cupcake there. They had their rematch with Florida, their home and home, after last year's thriller in the swamp, and they beat up on the Gators in Salt Lake City. So they were coming out of the gate really well. They beat UCLA. They lost on a Friday night game to Oregon State, but then they come back 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later, beg your pardon, and upset. Well, even though they were ranked higher at the time, a lot of people were picking USC. They seem to have USC's number the last few years.
They do,
and they beat them in a 34-32 thriller.
Right.
But then last week they had a serious reality check.
No offensive touchdowns. Yep.
Yeah, against Oregon, and end up losing 35-6. So this is a team I think that's looking to bounce back, but this is not the juggernaut Utah team that we've certainly seen in the past.
I agree. The point I'd like to make here is, who are they playing after us? Guess who they're playing? UW, one of their big perennial rivals. And the reason why I bring this up, they had a bad loss last week. They may be looking at ASU as an easy win, a walkover, and this has all the markings of a trap
because
game.
of our record, because of
right.
our 6-game losing streak.
Yeah, this has all the earmarks of a trap game, and if they play like that, it's not going to work out well for them. In other words, if they let up in the fourth quarter, or they take their foot off the pedal, or it's not going to be good. It's going to make the game tighter.
I mentioned their injuries to Cam Rising and Brant Queasy, but it doesn't stop there. Their top running back, Micah Bernard, he's pretty much done for the year. Wide receiver Micah Pittman, the Oregon transfer, out for the year. Their other top tight end, Thomas Yasmin, he's done for the year. And then one of their leading defensive players, Lander Barton, is probably out for the year. So definitely dealing with some injuries of the Utes at the moment. But I mean, they're still playing at a really high level. They're still one of the toughest teams in the nation. I mean, they're number 18. They're ranked number 18 for a reason at the moment, and they're a tough out. There's no doubt. And their offense has struggled at times this year. They've kind of flip-flopped their quarterbacks a little bit. Bryson Barnes looks to be the guy right now, but I mean, they're still lining up and running the ball. I mean, that's one thing you can always count on the Utes to do, is use their size. They always have great offense, very solid offensive linemen, and they'll get up and they'll line up and run the ball without a doubt. And Bryson Barnes, he stepped in, hasn't put up great numbers this year. 57% completion, 769 yards, 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, but he's done a lot with his legs. He is what I would consider a dual threat. 128 rushing yards to go along with 3 touchdowns. He's been solid for them. He's won some games for them. He's been in filling in for Cam Rising. He's done a really good job.
It's not just all red zone either, is it? Running.
What?
His running.
What?
His running.
Oh no. Yeah, he's made some plays with his arm, but they've struggled in the passing game this year. I mean, they haven't put up a lot of great numbers. Under Cam Rising, they were a lot more balanced team. They were certainly more run first, but he had a good arm, could could deliver on the big throws. Barnes is, he's just not that type of guy, at least not yet. He's still kind of developing. He's still learning on the job, and they've really gone more to more of a rushing attack. Under Cam Rising, I'd say they were more 65-35 run versus pass. Now I think with Barnes, they've kind of become more 75-25, 80-20.
Right. My question was,
yeah,
do they use him as a runner in the red zone, or do they let him run
red zone? Okay, I'm sorry, you cut out there for a minute. And they will use him, I think, as in the red zone, because that was one of Cam Rising's biggest threats.
That's their offense. That's they run plays for him, right, as a runner.
Yeah. I think they're certainly capable of doing that. And you got to keep home on him. Don't have clear eyes. Definitely don't bite on any play fakes, because they'll certainly use the play action with as much as they run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've also incorporated the backup Nate Johnson in there. He's a little bit more of a true running quarterback. He's had some success with his arm. Certainly no interceptions on the year. With 3 touchdowns. He's also run for 153 yards and 3 touchdowns on fewer carries than Barnes has. He hasn't had as many snaps as Barnes. Barnes looks to be more of the true starter, but they still have packages that Nate Johnson can run. So they'll certainly work him in, I think. So definitely got to be prepared for anything.
No picks
for Johnson. This double-headed, this 2-headed monster that they have at quarterback. These guys, they'll get out and run a little bit. They won't scare you with their arm talent, but they're certainly more than capable of putting points on the board.
Right. So and he can rush. He's probably the better rusher. Yeah.
And Nate Johnson is probably the better runner, but the Barnes is certainly capable of it. I mean, he's a good athlete, can get out and run, and with the running back talent that they have, they always seem to have good running backs. And Jaquindon Jackson, the Texas transfer, has kind of been the feature back this year.
Right.
99 carries, 487 yards, but only 1 touchdown so far this year. He hasn't really been a big red zone player for them. They've been using the other 2 running backs, Jalen Glover, who they'll rotate in. They like to rotate the running backs, keep them healthy. And then the Iron Man, Sion Vaki, who's also the team's starting strong safety. He's had a big year running the ball with 30 carries, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's also caught it 6 times. 2 of those for touchdowns. He's a big play guy. He's kind of like Shaq Thompson was for Washington a couple years ago, or Miles Jack for UCLA a few years back.
Who's a linebacker.
They'll play him both ways. They'll play him both ways and find ways to get him the ball because he's that good of an athlete. And this is still a team that they can throw the ball a little bit. It hasn't really been a focal point of their offense. I think teams are more focused on their running game, rightfully so. That's certainly the strength of this team. But Devon Vele, he seems like he's been there forever. He's still a solid receiver for them. 22 receptions, 281 yards. Money Parks, that is his real name. 20 receptions, 227 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's been a good player for them. And Mikey Matthews, another guy that's has been good for them. Since Queethy and Yasmin went down,
right,
they haven't really used the tight end very much in the receiving game, mostly as blockers. But that's not to say they certainly can't. They do have other guys on the roster. That's one team. Well, another thing this Utah offense can always do, they can recruit and coach up running backs and tight ends. It just seems to be their MO this year. To say nothing of their offensive linemen.
Yeah, they're notoriously good at reloading at line positions.
That's been the keys to their success for as long as they have.
Physicality is probably their biggest asset.
Absolutely. And they have a true freshman starting at left tackle in Spencer Fano. It's kind of a younger offensive line. They got a couple redshirt juniors, a couple redshirt sophomores, and true freshmen. So, but they've still found success on the ground. They're still averaging 177 yards a game on the ground. So that's what ASU's got to stop. That's what it's got to focus on. We'll get more into that in the keys of the game, but certainly something worth mentioning as this Utah offense, while not certainly not the juggernaut, like I mentioned, the juggernaut is and it has been in the past, still capable of putting a lot of points up on the board. And they've done that at times this year. I mean, they put 31 up. They granted against Weber State, but they put 34 up on Cal, 34 against USC. Not the best defenses certainly, but it's still a team that's capable of moving the ball up and down the field.
And they still have the opportunity to win the conference. They're not out of it. They're not out of it. And they have to realize that this is not a walkover game. They have to take every one of these very seriously, and they got to play at a very high level if they want to win 3 in a row. So, and I'm sure that's the motivate. That's what Coach Whittingham is in their head about is, you still have all your goals in front of you, playing for the conference championship, playing the Rose Bowl. So,
they've always been counted on to do 2 things well: play defense and run the ball. And if you can do that on a consistent basis, week in and week out, you give yourself a good chance to win. Ask Iowa.
I agree.
So, this is a team that they've only given up 18 points per game. That's 18th in the nation. So their defense has certainly not dropped off. They're only giving up 86 yards a game on the ground. A big reason why has been their safety play, and their safeties are 2 of the best in the nation, I think, as a tandem in Cole Bishop. He's the team's leading tackler. Certainly fills up that stat sheet: 42 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. So this guy, he's all over the field. They'll line him up in every which way imaginable. They'll bring him down in the box. They'll blitz him a lot. He does a lot of things very, very well. So definitely going to need to know where he is at all times. And I mentioned Sion Vaki, who, they'll put him at running back, but his primary position is strong safety. He's another guy who they bring down in the box. He's 41 tackles on the year, 83 tackles between the 2 safeties combined this year.
That's what it's designed for. It sounds like, that's their defense is designed around him.
He's got a sack, interception, a pass deflection to his resume as well this year. So Sion Vaki definitely making a case for, what is it, the Paul Hornung Award, the most versatile player in college football. So and then you move on to the rest of their defense here. Jonah Ellis become one of the best pass rushers in the nation. 10 sacks on the year. The son of former NFL defensive end Luther Ellis, and 32 go along with 32 tackles. And then their best corner is Zamiah Vaughn. And he's another guy who's kind of taken over that shutdown corner spot. 27 tackles, interception, 5 pass deflections. And then their big run stuffer, the space eater, Keanu Tanuvasa. They love those Islander kids.
Yes.
And 20 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble for him on the year. So it's a very much a loaded defense with a lot of playmakers. Certainly guys that they're living up to their resume. There's a reason they're only giving up 18 points per game.
Yeah.
Because they definitely get after it, and they force a lot of turnovers. That's Utah defense. Always tough to try to put points up against.
It was interesting after we played USC. I could just see knowing how Utah designs its defense, how they were going to be capable of having a great game against SC, and I thought they'd pull it out.
And they did pull it out. I mean, they still give up 32 points against the Trojans, but they certainly had their moments, and they had a couple big stops down the stretch. So I don't know what it is. Utah just seems to have USC's number over the last couple of years. They that win in the conference championship game last year kept USC out of the playoff. Their win this year was extremely impressive. Might have catapulted Utah into a spot in the conference championship game again if they continue to play as well as they have. But we'll see how things go, because they did not look very good against Oregon, and that was on their home field. That was at home where they lost 35-6 to the Ducks.
Yep.
So, I mean that certainly Oregon looks to be one of the classes of the class of the conference this year. They just are running over everybody at the moment. So, read into that what you will. Whereas Utah's kind of been plagued by injuries, but this is still an extremely talented, tough, big. Use all the adjectives you want. They fit this Utah team because they're tough. And I mean, this is a kind of an old school football team. They like to line up multiple tight ends, run it down your throat, control the clock. They'll pass when they need to, and they're certainly capable of it. But they're looking to run the ball, I'd say about 80% of the time when they have it. So, and they're looking to stop you and take it away, and then repeat the process. That's kind of become their recipe for success.
There's a lot
this year,
especially under
Kyle Ham.
Looking at these stats, there's a lot of pass deflects and picks from these guys. So yeah, they're very busy.
They're ball hawks. They get after it for sure.
Yes, they do. So
going into our keys of the game, presented by Sleep in Heavenly Peace. It's a great nonprofit that builds beds for families in need. Definitely support Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And for me, my key to the game this week, John can bring it up.
Yes, sir. I bet somebody hit me here.
For me, it's you got to start fast against a team like this. Maybe put them into a little bit of a hole, make them play from behind. Score fast, score often. If you jump out to a lead on Utah with their struggles throwing the ball the way they have this year, I feel like you give yourself a good chance to win, especially if ASU continues to run the ball the way they have. Granted, they probably won't have the same success they did against Washington State against this defense, but if they're able to do it and they're able to keep Trenton Bourguet's jersey clean and give him time to throw the ball, I like ASU's chances in this game. I feel like they play smart, don't turn the ball over, don't take any unnecessary chances against this defense that's not just tough and big and physical. They're disciplined too. They're not going to beat themselves. They don't make stupid mistakes. They don't over pursue. They don't commit stupid penalties. This is a very well coached team as well. So ASU is going to have to provide the ammunition and go out there and play how we've seen them capable of the last few weeks. And then on defense, you got to put some extra men in the box, control that line of scrimmage, which is a tall ask against this Utah team that just feasts on controlling the line of scrimmage. But you just got to contain the Utes' running game and keep their quarterbacks in the pocket, keep them contained because they like to get out and run. They like to improvise. They'll do a lot of different things well if you let them. So you make them, if you can somehow get out to a lead, make them one-dimensional. I think you give yourself a great chance to win as well.
Your points are spot on. To kind of amplify on that, we've got to stop the run, and you just can't be happy stopping it for a half. It's got to be they're going to keep coming.
I agree.
And then the two losses they've had, Oregon State and Oregon, they were held under 100 yards rushing. So that was the key stat to me, just looking through it this afternoon. And then
keep them under 150. I think they give themselves a chance.
Oh, if we're at 150, I'm going to feel great. Yes, something's working, because I just know that when they're going to pound the rock all four quarters, that means you've got to have a lot of fresh D line guys to keep going at it, and I'm not sure we're there yet.
That was something else that I mentioned in the pre-show. Yeah, this could be a game where ASU's D line and linebacker depth is tested.
Well, I'm looking for big games.
Utah will wear you down very easily.
BJ Green, Mallory, all those guys are going to need to really rise to the occasion here and play all four quarters. It's going to be their toughest physical game. This is going to be a street fight up front.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that
usually is against Utah. That's their MO. That's their style of play.
They love to
have those slobber knocker, drag it out. Bare knuckle type of games, and they're an old school built team. They're physical. They love to run the ball, love to chew up the clock, love to keep the chains moving, and wear you down. And if you let them, that's exactly what they'll do.
So my other big key then is that our O-line has to win the battle of the trenches. Folks, you can watch the first series on both sides of the when we're on offense and when we're on defense, and see who's beating who. Okay, but if our O-line does like they did last week and keep the sets really tight, in other words, the spacing between their feet, and bring in tight ends and wide receivers close to and engage them in pass protection, we can keep you've got to keep Trenton clean. But so and then obviously you've got to sustain blocks on in the run game. So we got our hands full, but I like the adjustments. I like the coaching up front, the technique. So those are two of the keys. Where are we here? Okay, we're up to predictions.
Yeah, and our predictions, of course, we both picked ASU to win last week. I think we were both pretty close, relatively close. We usually are. We both, kind of run at all before we pick these games. But I got ASU falling in a close one to the Utes. I just feel like that home field advantage is not the easiest place to play, Rice-Eccles Stadium. And Utah's ability to run the ball and control line of scrimmage is going to kind of wear down ASU, especially in the fourth quarter. Like Utah, ASU will have a lead at some point in the fourth quarter, and Utah just scores a touchdown with like maybe 4 minutes to go up, and ASU just unable to. It kind of runs out of gas a little bit, and they're not able to pull it out. And I got Utah winning 24-20.
I kind of see it like the first team to 20 has a good chance to win this thing. And if
it goes Utah's way, their style, that's entirely possible. But
right.
ASU has beaten them at their own game before, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, my thinking is that it will be more, the over under. The wise guys have it like 40.5. I just think it's going to be a bigger defensive battle. And I do think I think we'll figure out a way on the D line to stay fresh and keep bringing, some of those jailhouse blitzes and stuff at the right moment
in college
win,
football.
If
no team scores 30, that is a defensive battle.
It is. And by the way, last week we kind of missed the fact that it really was, in sort of a way, it was kind of a little bit of a boat race, as far as how when both teams are over 30 like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's exciting to see this team not giving up and still buying in, and see the adjustments that the coaches are making, and seeing the really every single week and I don't know how to put a number on it, but there is palpable how the improvement it was. And that's why really we picked them both to win last week. We could just see it coming. And
we knew at some point they were going to put it all together and come up with a win. I'm glad it was last week. I'm glad it was at home. I'm glad it was in front of 4,000 Washington State fans.
Yeah,
they were getting a little mouthy there, especially for a team that's 4-3.
And by the way,
so it felt really good to shut them up.
I made the point last week that we really needed to lock down Brian Ward. I'm really happy to announce, folks, that Brian was locked. They locked him down for 3-year extension. He's going to get more money, more buyout, more everything. So that's a great step. And I think you're going to start seeing probably more of the some more coaches before the year is over being given longer term deals.
I think with the way the team is starting to develop, I think that's certainly well deserved. So yeah, definitely looking forward to some of that. And just to kind of put a bow on this. This was one of the games at the beginning of the year we kind of circled as one of the games we felt like if ASU could pull off the upset, this would be kind of a stepping stone, something that they could, build as a foundation and say, hey, we won this game. There's no reason we can't win this game or that game or this game. Going, 2-3 years down the road. And, I think that, this was one Washington, USC, some of the big time opponents who were ranked, those were the games that we kind of pointed to and said, hey, if ASU can pull off the upset, it's certainly something you can hang your hat on, regardless of how the rest of the season plays out. And this game, I think you can point to with the success UCLA has had this year. That's a game you can point to. Oregon, certainly, that's another game we pointed at. So these last 4 games, they're big, and they're certainly ones that we'd like to see ASU come away with, preferably 2-2, I think would be ideal. But if you can if you can go 1-3, win one of these final 4 games, I think that you're putting yourself in a good spot going into a new conference with the second season under KD and his staff in 2024.
I didn't put up the slide of all of the games that were announced for next year, but we're going to see some.
That came out this year. That came
Yeah.
out this week as well, and certainly something that we're looking forward to. ASU will play 4 home non-conference games next year,
Right.
and I think Utah is actually one of them.
Yes.
So
yeah. It's
we'll certainly look forward to that, and we'll have more on their schedule in the coming weeks. Of course, we'll be here every week. Certainly like and subscribe, comment below. We certainly appreciate your feedback. We love talking ASU football. That's why we do this, and we love talking it with you each and every week. So that'll do it for us. Early kickoff on Saturday,
right,
11 a.m. on the Pac-12 network. The Devils and Utes. We will certainly be tuning in. Hope you will as well. So that'll do it for us. Say good night. Go Devils. Forks up. What is a Ute, Big John? What's a Ute?
What's a Ute? What's a Ute?
So
anyway?
Beat the Utes. Dilly.
Dilly.
Forks up.
Dilly
Go
dilly.
Devils.
Here we go.